So tonight we're thrilled to have with us one of our own members, Bruce, WA3SWJ, to talk to us about D-Star. So Bruce, it's over to you.
Yep. Well, good evening, everyone. And as I said, I think I was looking back to my records. I think I was we moved up here full time at the end of last year, but we were going half time before that. So I think I was sort of phasing out of the Maryland. So just got a prop here. Okay. Last couple of years there, but yeah, I'm up in Massachusetts now. I look back in my notes. I did this D-Star presentation back in 2015. I think that's sort of when we first installed the D-Star and got it up and running. So what I'd like to do, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. We practice this, so this should work okay. Okay, and then I'll start up the presentation mode over here. Okay, should you see my title screen here? Okay, yes, thumbs up, good. All right, so said I'm now living in one land. A big debate is whether I should change my call or not. A lot of people say yes, some people say don't. I've had the same call since it switched from Novice, so. All right, I did get a lot of this information as I did back then from several presentations that are out there. There is a lot of D-Star information out there on the net, and so I borrowed from a lot of these the various presentations and sources. I'd like to talk tonight about D-Star, what it is, what can we do with it, and talk about the repeater and gateway system. That's really the magic of the D-Star. Some of the equipment, the user registration you have to go through if you're not a D-Star member at all, essentially getting started. I'll talk about making the first call. There's a notion about four call signs. And then if we have time, or I'll briefly go through D-Star routing, got some advanced topic. We haven't really jumped on that too much at the MARC repeater. Up here in Massachusetts, they've gone with the Fusion more, so there's not too many D-Star repeaters up here. Okay, so let's talk about what it is right off the bat. So did I skip this one? Huh. Okay, so there's I'm missing a slide here somehow. What happened? Let me see what happened here. Escape. F5. There it is. All right, so D-Star stands for Digital Smart Technologies for Amateur Radio. Kind of basic. It's in the big complaint about it when it first came out was it was closed, it was proprietary, and it's not. It's a very documented protocol. It's out there for anybody to implement. What is licensed is the chip down here, the chip, the AMBI chip down here, the codec that converts the voice, digitizes your voice, both from analog to digital and back from digital back to analog. That algorithm in that chip is what's licensed. So you can buy that chip and put it in your product. The other thing to comment about, then D-Star, you can, if you have D-Star radios, you can talk, just like a regular HT between the radios without any equipment, and you can talk to repeaters without any special equipment. It's the protocols are required when you start sending the information out over the network and routing it to different repeaters. So here's this chip. You can go to the Digital Voice Systems Incorporated and buy the chip if you want. I'm not sure what the price is. They didn't have the price there, but any vendor can buy the chip and stick it in their radio. So just quickly, so this is a basic AM, FM transceiver. It's just the transmitter side. Basically takes the audio, cleans it up a little bit, mixes it in with an RF, a carrier, intermediate frequency, amplifies it, and sends it out. What's going on with a D-Star radio, or in some of these digital radios in general, I think the Fusion radios would fall in the same category. Essentially, here I am talking on the left there. I think my mouse works too, right? And I'm going through this codec and turning my voice into digital bits, a digital stream. There's a controller that essentially packs up the data into frames, and we'll talk about that in a minute, and it sends it to a modem, which modulates it and puts it into an RF stream. So here's another little thing about the chip. Here's the codec over there. This controller chip essentially has to take the data, the straight digital data of your voice coming off the chip, and doing forward error correction, building these frames that have to get transmitted out. Likewise, in the same way, when these frames come back in, it has to sync up with the frame, pull the information out, send the data that is the voice data to the decoder, and so it comes out as audio. There's two specific things. There's a digital voice channel, essentially, and a data channel. The digital voice is a 3.6 kilobit data stream. There's 2,400 bits of voice. That's the voice part. And within those frames there's a 1,200 bits is used for forward error correction. So if you get noise or some interference, it will tend to correct it. And we'll talk about noise and how it sounds later in a second coming up. There's also a 1,200 bit data rate for small messages that can be sent. Now, what gets sent in there is typically text messages. There's GPS coordinates get sent in there, and other user data can be sent in these short messages. The channel itself is about 6.25 kilohertz, and I've got a picture on that in a second too. There's also a data stream. We were using this for the Marine Corps Marathon. The team was. They were using these based on these ID1 radios. They were only 23 centimeters. The ID1 unfortunately is no longer in production, but that was it had the capability to have this higher bandwidth data stream. I won't go, this is a pretty busy chart. I won't go into the details, but starting at, if you look at the bottom, very bottom along the bottom of the slide, that's the frame, the big frame. And then this is where all the parts come from. There's a radio header there in the blue there. And you can see there's the different call signs we'll talk about coming up too, you know, how to route this packet. And then next is the yellow here. This is where the, you know, up here at the top of the yellow, you see voice samples. Is my mouse working? You can see my arrow mouse. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Here's the voice samples coming out of the AMBI codec. It takes 2560 bits of each one, encodes it, and shoves it into the frame. And then there's some control information in here and some of the data information, GPS. And so this just repeats alternating voice and data, and then determining, so that's one big frame. And then this repeats. So this is the frame structure that gets built. There's a nicer picture of it. Here's the, so there's a radio header part we talked about. And then there's the radio header, and then the data section essentially has an audio frame, a data frame, and those alternate all through this thing. And then there's a wrap-up frame. All right, so this is just some details of what those, I won't belabor this point here. So this is just describing the different flags and bit patterns or everything in the frame there. Just quickly talking about the modem now. I've digitized my voice. I've run through the controller. The controller has built these frames now, and now I need to modulate them out onto a carrier. So they use GMSK, which stands for Gaussian minimum shift keying. And I essentially just looked this information up on Wikipedia. What's interesting, and down there in blue here, while it's got a nice high spectral efficiency, it needs a slightly higher power than some of the other digital modes in order to reliably transmit the data. And you'll see this, and this is a bit of debate. Some people say the D-Star is, it'd always be clear because it's digital, so it will either decode or it won't. It's a sort of somewhat binary. And let me see if, yeah, here's the picture here. So here's someone was doing a study, and I got this from D-Star for Dummies, Charles Johnson. And I've got the links, the references back in the back there. So the blue is an analog signal. And what typically you'd see, this is the signal strength. Typically what you see with an analog signal is you move further away, this analog signal is going to drop off, and the audio quality, what you hear, is going to start to get picket fencing and scratchiness and harder to hear. But it turns out our brain does a lot of good processing. So if you can hear some of the words, you can sort of put two and two together. So it turns out you can still interpret and get a lot of data through, even though they're low signal levels. With digital, you'll see that because of forward error correction, it'll be perfect, and then suddenly it cuts off. You'll start getting R2D2, and you won't be able to understand anything. Some people say it takes a little more power for this digital signal than because to get this quality. This guy in this report, I was surprised, saying he was using the same antenna, same wattage, he was doing a study. So you'll have to look that up, and if you want to read through that again. But typically I found that you need a little more power with the digital to make sure you get the frames all decoded, mostly because the brain is so clever with the pulling our words and our tones and everything out of the, in context. If you have a context with a conversation, our brain does a lot of processing of the analog signal coming from a straight analog radio that your brain can't do it. Your brain doesn't do the decoding in a digital mode. So here's just talking about how GMSK works. You know, as it was shifting, phase shifting the signal. I'll some of this I'll just put in for reference. If you go back and look at some of this information kept in there. So on the top, there's the bandwidth of a typical AM kind of signal. So that's what, about 40 kilohertz. Yeah, 1 to the 40. Whereas a D-Star, a digital D-Star signal is about 6, 7, depending on where you want to have the skirt cut off there. So what that means is that here's the typical channel spacing, T-mark, here are the 2-meter channel pairs and stuff. And here's the equivalent D-Star signal since it's smaller. So this last picture, theoretically, you could put 3 D-Star channels in the space of 1 analog signal. And I think the other technology out there is fusion. We're not talking about that tonight. I know at one point we were looking at a fusion repeater. It's similar kind of the digital stream, but I didn't get to look into that. We didn't have a chance to look into that too much. All right, so what can you do with D-Star? All right, so on the left here, typical, obviously you can take a D-Star radio and talk to another D-Star radio, simplex operation, nothing special there. I can, same thing, go with if I have a D-Star repeater, I can go through a repeater, everything we're used to there. The magic comes when these repeaters are linked to a mothership and have gateways, and so I can link them together. So so someone placing a call in Germantown can actually call someone in San Francisco, either call anybody on this repeater or a specific person in San Francisco. And this is routing, we can talk about that at the end, or just linking the repeaters together. Notice I've made if I can link these 3 together, Germantown, San Francisco, and London, I have a wide area repeater. So whatever this guy, and it works just like a repeater. So when this guy talks up here, it ties up this repeater in London. Same thing. So you have to have the same, all that repeater protocols, have to behave the same, right? You can step on each other if you're not careful. All right. So that's the real magic then, is being able to tie the repeaters to a network. And then this is ICOM's little graphic where they put their marketing literature. They're basically talking about the different modes we talk about. There's basic digital voice mode. There's within the digital voice mode, there's this data. There's that packets that could be interspersed with the data, so you can send some call sign information, little short messages, GPS information. That's down here, application 3. And then they also have this data mode, the DV mode. I'm sorry, the DD mode, digital. That's the 128 kilobit per second. And there you can send IP camera work, data over the thing, or just basic high-speed internet access. We were always using, and the Mark repeater is always just set up with digital voice. And so some of the data it sends out, some of the radios have GPS receivers built into them. So you can go to this link and you can see where people are, because as part of your D-Star packet that gets sent out, there's lat long information. So you get, if it gets picked up by a digipeater, it will get plotted. I'm sorry, it doesn't have to be picked up digipeater. The D-Star home ship, mothership, will provide that information to APRS-FI. All right, and then how do you locate a D-Star repeater near me? Well, you go to this, find you D-Star repeaters, and here are all the D-Star repeaters in the area. You can see you guys have plenty down there in Washington, and you can see up in Massachusetts where I am, I'm not out here on the Cape, there's nothing I can hit from out here on the Cape. But here's the KV3B repeater registered on the site there. And then you can go, there's a gateway status page right here. And you can see, let me see if I can bring this, oops, let me see here. If I can do this trick here now. I'm going to slide this other page down. Did that work? Did this page come up? Yes, okay. So here's the, move this thing out of the way too. This shows all the gateways that are online checked in with the mothership. And you can see here's KV3B right here. Here's our repeater that's checked in. There's some gateways that need some updates. Their system administrators are getting behind, or for some reason not running the update script, so they're getting flagged as needing updates. There's some that are not synchronizing with what they call the US route. D-Star is a global distributed database. So when we register someone for the database, you only have to register at one of these gateways, and then you're registered for the whole network, the whole worldwide network. So that's why one of the checks when the system administrator, when you want to register at a gateway, they check to make sure you've not registered on another gateway. And if I click on our station, our link, here's our little status page. You can see that we're in sync. Les checked in at 23:58, which was what, 2 or 3 minutes ago, 3 minutes, yep, there it is. It checks on our software is up to date. There's running ICOM software. There's our root process that we're all running. So and our pages are okay. So that all looked good. And so let me slide this out now. Go back to this page down. Oh, all right, let me do one more thing on this page then. Let me go back. And let's bring up so if you go to, here's our dashboard site, and here are the links, thanks to Joe. We'll talk about Joe's work in a minute, already doing some work here. But this is the dashboard of the KV3B repeater up there. Again, it's telling you whether it's linked to a reflector or not. We'll talk about that in a minute. Any remote users, people link in with hotspots, they would show up here. And here's looks like WJ3F. Howard in Germantown was the last person kind of through it. I see Joe used it a little bit earlier this evening as well. Okay, so let me go on. So the next thing then, reflectors. There is, let me make sure it moves a page here. I'm not sure why my, I'm sorry, here it is. I don't know if I'm skipping it or they're. Okay, reflectors. So here we are in Germantown, and we could just directly talk to another repeater, or I can, through a reflector, I could tie these two reflectors together. So everything that these guys, so these reflectors, two repeaters essentially become, we've tied them together. They become one repeater. So one guy talking here, he comes out on the Frederick repeater. And someone talking Frederick comes out on the Germantown repeater. Likewise, here's London, Alexandria, and Virginia are hooked together all together. Here's Naples and Italy. Now, obviously, you can see, you keep going, you could connect all these repeaters to one reflector, but that would just be chaos. So what they've done is there's a whole list of reflectors out there at this site. So I'm going to do that trick again with bring this other page in here a second and go to the reflectors. So here are all the reflectors. There's the Illinois, here's the D-Star mega repeater in London, England. Here's Japan's got a bunch here, designate to us. We using 62 Charlie, so go down here to 62 Charlie was sort of our default reflector. 62 Charlie is the mid, I know it's small font, sorry. Let me do a Control Plus. Oh, it is big, okay, good. 62 Charlie, here's the Mid-Atlantic regional nets. And we just know, Joe and I just noticed the other day that they added a 62 Alpha, the Mid-Atlantic net. So they probably run the nets on the D-Star nets on the 62 Alpha. So you'll probably want to update the schedule to have it switch to 62 Alpha, depending when there's a net on. But you can see there's all sorts of nets here. I'm sorry, reflectors here. And I was going to try and, let me see, this demonstration, this thing failed miserably today. I'm going to try and switch to the 1 Charlie, which is D-Star's mega repeater out of London, England. But hopefully we'll hear some traffic on it. So it's 1 Charlie. So I'm going to switch. This is my, and I'll talk about this in a minute. This is my Zoom spot. Since I can't get any local D-Star repeaters, I had to use a Zoom spot, and I'll talk about that in a minute what that is. But we're going to go to reflector 1 Charlie, right? Oops. Very crude inflates. Reflector 1 Charlie. Link. Let's see if there's anyone on there tonight.
Link to REF001 Charlie.
Okay, so we're linked and there's no one there. All right, I'm surprised at that. Okay, we talked about the.
For what it's worth, if you were listening to the repeater, our D-Star repeater now, you'd be hearing the Maryland D-Star net.
Oh, good.
On. So it's on 62 Alpha.
Okay, so let's
so our repeater switched over.
Okay.
At 8 o'clock.
Oh, nice. Okay, very good. So that did work a little bit. Did work.
Yep.
Is it 62 alpha? Let's try switch over there a second. This.
Or we lost Grady. One
Okay.
more time. Let's see if Grady comes back.
So that sounds like the net there, right? So now
That's
it's working 62 alpha. Okay, very good. Okay, but so you can see you could switch into any of those nets anytime.
We'll see if it's my end. Let's
Let
do
me turn this
it.
down. Okay. All right, let me get this out of the way again. All right, so again, there are all the nets. I said it might be a good idea to update that. We have a program that runs on the gateway. They call MonLink, and it will automatically switch to there's a schedule it can follow to switch to these different nets. And so it probably could use some update. If you look at what's interesting, now and we'll also talk about you as a user can switch this thing to a reflector anytime as well too. We'll talk about that as well. All right, so let's talk about the repeater gateway system a little bit. Again, this is the OV1, I like to call it for my working days, but this is what ICOM puts out again, is this digital voice, digital data networks off the repeater. And then they envision this backbone system separate from the internet to connect these different D-Star nodes together to provide an alternate to the internet. And so our system, what their architecture looks like, they have a controller here, and then they have these different modules that are essentially the different band units. So they have a 23-meter data, centimeter data, 23 centimeter voice. They've got a 2-meter and a 70-centimeter modules. We just have the controller and the 70-centimeter module, and the controller is hooked to a gateway that's running the G3 that slides out of date. Sorry, this is that connects us to the internet. They had envisioned this alternate backbone, essentially a high-speed microwave link to hook in. So instead of having to go through the internet, or in case you don't have internet access, you could have a high-speed internet link. And this was interesting when we were talking to the MAPIN guys a little bit, the Maryland IP network, or ARDEN, there's an amateur radio emergency data network. So some options there if we ever wanted to tie this thing in, because obviously if the internet goes down, you lose a lot of the magic here. So this the system designers had designed it to provide for an alternate backbone. So here are the physically, if you took a picture, Joe saw this the other day, you took a picture of the front of in our rack, here's the controller, and here's the 440 box. Unfortunately, you open them, you're a little surprised to see all ICOM has done is just put 2 of their radios in there and connected them together. So this is the transmit box, and this is opening up the controller box. And then essentially what the controller block says, we're not using this assist repeater down here, so we're not using this part of it at all. So it's essentially taking those frames that are coming off the internet, picking them up, unpacking them, and decode and taking the audio, stripping out the audio and the control information and sending that to the repeater, the audio out or taking it in. So frames coming off the internet are sent to the repeater's transmitter. Things coming in from the repeater's receiver are converted into frames and put on the internet. All right, so we are then one node in this massive, you saw there were like, I think there were 400 or 300 stations. What did I say there were? What would you say? There's a number at the top here. Okay, there's 274 plus 72 or something. So there's that many. We are one node in this massive repeater network. Okay, and so I already, and then here's, I already did show here's our nice URL. Thanks to Joe, we've got our nice cleaned up URL. And now here's another page showing us this is our status. We're connected to Reflector 62 Charlie when I took this snapshot. And here are the people who had last used it. You can also get to if you want to register, you click on this link, and that's how you get to our registration page. So am I ready to talk about that next? Okay. Any questions so far? I'm going to talk about some of the equipment here a minute. No? Okay. Let me do, okay, keep going. All right, so they were using the ID1, and this is what the Marine Corps Marathon was using an ID1 network to connect the sites together, the different med tents and everything. But they've since discontinued it. And now that this past year, they just deployed a Arden network. And actually, when I left the first year, the year before they canceled the race, we were just started testing the Arden network out there. And now I think their plan is fully deploy it. So they're fully going to run it this year out there and provide the internet access to the med tents that way. So this is how you would connect in your essentially an Ethernet cable. This would give you an Ethernet cable across a radio link. They still have all their mobiles are out, and ID 880s here. And so they've got, you can look up the different features. I think these are still all in production. Some of them have the GPS radios, receiver in them, some don't. But you can look up the different features there. And then they have lots of handhelds that are digital. I don't think any other manufacturer right now has done D-Star. As I said, the big debate is whether to go Fusion or D-Star right out there right now. And so these are the different handhelds. I've got a IC91A. Okay, and the alternatives to all that too is if you're not near a gateway, an RF gateway, you can buy these dongles. There's 149. This is Amazon, or a hotspot. I'm running a hotspot. I have an earlier version of this. Basically, it's a Raspberry Pi Zero with a little DMR cord on top of it. And this essentially where you go in, and that's the interface I just showed you. This one, sorry. And so you can go in here and you can link to any, look at all the different reflectors you can link to. And it will link to it, and then you can talk with your HT. Also has to be a DMR or a D-Star radio, but you'll be able to link, even though this it comes to your own little small mini gateway to the network, which is it's very handy. So you can get into this very easily. This is the little board that sits on top of the Pi-Star. And here's, let's see, this is. Oh. Let me see if I can move mine over here. Whoops. It's connected. Oh, I'm gonna unplug it. Okay. Here's my, I'm doing screen share. Okay, that's not gonna work. Okay, I essentially have this module stuck on top of a Pi Zero. And then it gives you that interface. So it's very nice. And as I said, you don't need much power because you're just going across the room or within your house to your HT. So what's happening here, you're either going with in one mode where you put this dongle in the side of your computer and you use the voice, the microphone, and the speaker of your computer. They send the digital data out to this, the Ambi chip is on the thing, so it encodes it. It also builds the frames and then knows how to talk the protocol to talk to the D-Star network. So you've essentially got from anywhere in the world. I think there's also, so anywhere in the world now, you can sit here and get on the D-Star network just with this dongle. When you're when you're traveling, you can tie back into the home reflectors, home repeaters. And so I don't know what's happening there with the animation, you're already present. So here's another one using a hotspot, and that's why I'm running here. But you have to have a D-Star enabled HT, and then this little hotspot runs and it connects to the network. And then once you're on the network, you can connect to any of the repeaters or the reflectors. So it's a nice setup. We also did, again, if you have an old style analog radio, we made these other hotspots and we built one and left it. Now it's a different kind of node adapter. But again, you take a regular radio and it's just passing the audio signal straight through to this guy. And then he is able to take that audio signal and decode it and build the frames out of it and put it on the network. So that was another option. And this is the one we left behind. I guess Terry's got it. Essentially, it was a Raspberry Pi. This DVPTR board has been replaced by the other one. There are newer models of it, versions of it. And there was an analog Motorola receiver. And this became a hotspot. A hotspot is just a simplex. It will pick up the transmission from an HT, a D-Star HT, and put it out on the network, out to the D-Star network. Likewise, frames coming off the D-Star network, it will decode and pass it to the radio to transmit. And typically that's a simplex frequency, but those hotspots work well. And that was a way to kind of, I was running one in my QTH down in Rockville and was tied to the KV3B, the gateway up in Germantown. So we were trying to make, just like the 2 meter had a satellite receiver spread around, theoretically you could make an array of satellite receivers for these D-Star repeater. And then for any of those things, you do typically need to quote punch holes in your firewall to pass some of this D-Star data. And this is documented, you know, what ports you need to open up to get through your firewall. All right, so let's talk about D-Star user registration. This is one of the jobs that Joe has taken over. So essentially, if you want to just, one radio wants to talk to another one, it's not required. If you want to just talk to the repeater, it's not required. But if you want to go out over the network and go to another, talk to someone else, that's when you really have to be registered. Registering essentially assigns you a unique IP address in the network, so your calls and your data can be routed appropriately. So we have a, Joe, I'm assuming I sent you that in the zip files. There should be a nice little document that we can send out, but it's pretty intuitive. To the steps, you need 12 simple steps to go through to register. We currently have about 120 people have registered through the KV3B gateway. But as I mentioned before, because it's a worldwide distributed network, you really only have to register at one site. So we run into situations where someone moves states and they call you up and hey, I'm trying to register. And you come back and say, well, it looks like you're already registered, in your home state. You do not have to re-register. When you register at a KV3B at a gateway in the D-Star network, you're registered worldwide. But if you're new to a thing, you essentially submit a registration, you log on and submit a registration request. And then I had suggested to send me an email, but now I put Joe's email in here. Maybe, I don't know if you want to use that email, Joe. You could also probably get one from the Mark domain too. To poke them, because unfortunately,
that email address works.
Okay.
Or my call sign at arl.net also works.
Maybe you put that in there instead. Thank you. And again, only because the interface is very basic. The admin interface, and I can show it to you, is very basic, and it doesn't allow you to, it doesn't really notify you that someone wants to do some work. So here's the dashboard. You go to registration, and as a new user, you would just go through this register flow. And you fill in your call sign name and hit OK. And then unfortunately, Joe does not get an email or any sort of notification. So he has to log on periodically and poll this thing, or it's nice to get an email saying, hey, I've registered, would you go do that? And so what the register has to do is essentially verify that you've got an active FCC license and that you're not already registered in another gateway. So the admin does those 2 steps. And if those passes, it's an AND gate. Then he goes ahead and registers you and lets you know you've been registered. At that point, you log back in and you go and update your, okay, so there's the registration, here's the information. And then you log back in and you fill out essentially what radios you have. If you've got a hotspot, an HT, and a mobile or something. And again, they've made this simple, and you tell it whether it's an access point or not, or just a regular radio. But this assigns an IP address for each of those radios. All right, any questions so far?
Yes, Lewis has a question.
Do I need to do anything, or Lewis, you just go on mute? I see your hand.
Yeah.
I'm just hearing buzzing.
Can you hear me? This is Lewis.
Yep, now I hear you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, who like owns and manages the worldwide registration service and servers? Is that ICOM?
No, what you mean? So you mean who owns the mothership?
Yeah, the mothership.
That's a good question. I don't know. I don't think it's ICOM. I think there's that's a good question. I don't know who takes ownership of that. As I said, it's a distributed database. So each of the gateways have a copy of the database on their server. But you're right. Who maintains this? I bet we could go look. In fact, there's a route in each Okay, we'd have to go look for that.
Most,
Here's
Most
the
of
trust
that
server. Yeah, you could probably look
find
up
it
who
in-
this trust server is. usroot.dstar.users.org, and that would probably be a good place to start.
yeah, and there's a lot of information on dstarinfo.com.
Yes.
Okay,
And you can probably find the answer there.
okay. So we're not like beholden to ICOM, really.
Correct. Correct.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Hey, Bruce.
Yes.
Hi, this is Al. Just a shameless plug for T-Mark, who's trying to do band plan management with the little hotspots. They have a band plan which have incorporated these hotspots in the 438, just above the satellite band, 438 megahertz. A lot of people use the 435 out of the box. Just be mindful that there are other radio services that you potentially could interfere with. So when in doubt, when you're setting things up for the first time, please go to the T-Mark website and take a look at the band plan because it does show hotspots.
Yeah, that's great. That's great because when I was setting ours up years ago, right, we weren't really sure, but that's great to know. And obviously going to benefit everything if you know where the hotspots are, you can tune to those frequencies and hopefully pick one up. So yeah, that's huge.
So Bruce, we have a couple more questions. First one from Joe, KB3KGA.
Okay. Go ahead, Joe.
Hi, everybody. My question is, what happens if a person who is already registered changes their current call sign?
That is a good question. And what happens? Yeah, and what happens, unfortunately, and we've gotten requests. They said, "Can you just go in and edit my registration?" And no, because that interface is so primitive, you basically have them re-register with the new call sign and you delete the old one.
Okay.
And then
Okay,
And then when they do that, when you delete the old one, that frees up those IP addresses. They go back in the pool. So then when you re-register your radios, you get assigned new IP addresses.
Yeah, and then, and if you're in that situation, it's a good idea to mention that in the email that you send. So I know to do both of those operations because the site won't, there's not an option on the site for you to do that for yourself.
Right.
So there's
Oh.
another question from Dennis, KD6DPR.
Sure. Go ahead, Dennis.
Oh, I don't really have a question. I just have a comment about the registration and what happened to me. For some reason, our repeater wasn't available at the time, so I registered with the Frederick repeater, and they changed the call sign, and that orphaned me. So I was not registered. I was registered with a repeater that didn't exist anymore, essentially. So I had to go to dstarusers.org or whatever it's called and ask them to delete my registration so I could re-register.
The W3 ICF registration repeater went away. Is that the one?
I don't remember what the call sign was now,
Wow.
but they changed the call sign, and
Okay.
that essentially orphaned everyone that was registered with
Jeez.
no way they could not transfer the registrations. Yeah,
Huh.
the registration system is really horrible for
Right.
D-Star.
It's
and they-
it's very basic. Yes.
Yeah, they really should fix that. But anyways, I just thought I'd mention that as as it can be a problem.
So we have one more question from Lewis, W3VVV.
Oh, and thanks. On the hotspot, I noticed it looked like it had like a little rubber ducky antenna on it. I assume that's detachable and you could, put a battery antenna on and maybe then put that high up and kind of cover maybe your greater neighborhood if you wanted to. Is that correct?
Yes. I mean, but this is like a micro, I think it's 100 milliwatt. I'm not sure what the power is.
Mhm.
But yeah, if you're trying to do like a neighborhood deal, I would go this route where you get a radio that's got 25 watts or something.
Yeah, the other thing I've read, I haven't tried to do it, but I've read that these transmitters on the hotspots are not very high quality. So they put out a noisy signal. So you probably don't want to put it up on a big antenna or an amplifier because you're going to be making a lot of noise on the band.
Yeah. That's,
Okay, thank you.
yeah, that's a very good point. Actually, because you can see like the shielding on there, right? There's no sort of shielding
Right.
or it's just, that's a good point. As I said, they work great I can go all over my house. And this thing's sitting in my basement. I can go all over my house with the AT. I mean, it's not big. But. Okay. All right, anything else? Keep going. All right, so
Quick question, Bruce.
sure.
Yeah, just the difference between the dongles and like a Zoom spot and stuff, is it, I know the Zoom spot requires a capable radio of that mode because it receives the signal from your radio on that little antenna. But the dongles allow you to connect, but just using the microphone and headset of the computer without any radio at all. Is that right?
Correct. That's right. So no radio presence. So you could basically make, because it's in the end, since it's all a digital network, you can build that digital frame with software on the computer. And the only reason you typically need the dongle is because of the Ambi chip. There's no way to do the encode decode of the voice, but the software is capable of building the frames just in all.
Okay, thanks.
So they
So we
route.
have ano-
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, we have another question from Tom, W3TDH.
Okay.
Bruce, the equipment we started to install here, has that got the same problem as that little hotspot? Because there was a different set of equipment in terms of noise.
No, it should. No, it shouldn't. This is the equipment we left there. It has, because we're using a Motorola radio, and then this
Okay.
is the little box, right? And then so this essentially was the controller. This was the box that this did the internet, and then this was the box that did the encoding and decoding of the frames. But so
So
this is
can
not
you-
a problem because this is a good quality Motorola radio.
Okay, so can your successor provide me with the help to put that on the air? Because I'm finally working on antennas and I could add it, dedicate a radio to it as long as, it's useful.
I don't want to speak for Joe, but he's very enthusiastic and capable.
Tom, we can talk. I can help you.
Did you see that, Joe? You didn't even have to miss a meeting and you're appointed.
It's amazing.
All right, let's see. We did go through the user registration. Okay, we talked about that. So let's talk about the first D-Star call. There's four
First-
calls. Yeah.
First, there was one other question that
Oh, I'm
was
sorry.
from Tony, KC3, November Lima Tango.
Okay.
Tony, you put it in the chat. Do you want to just ask Bruce directly?
Oh,
Oh, yeah. Well, hey, thanks. I don't know. I was just sort of throwing it out there. I mean, I feel like I'm kind of in over my head here, but my question was just like looking at DMR and D-Star and the like, and like, do I need a D-Star radio, a D-Star capable radio to use this? Is it proprietary sort of in that regard with like how I can access this system? I mean, if I set up my hotspot, whatever, I mean, let's assume I have, resource for, any sort of Pi and I know how to set all that great stuff up and everything like that. I mean, I need a D-Star radio is the end point. Is that what we're looking at here?
Or you could do the computer just to straight get the dongle and just do the computer. This is a debate. This is the problem is I think there's Fusion, there's D-Star and DMR out there that are kind of the competing technologies. And somewhat you'll have to assess either for emergent preparedness or what kind of repeater or, where you want to invest. As I said, there's lots of D-Star down in Maryland there. And then as far as and what I do here, unfortunately, because we were using D-Star down there, that Zoom spot that I run, what just happened? There it is. You can see, go to configuration. Okay, so you can see all the different modes it can handle. So right now I'm handling both D-Star and DMR. So I have my old D-Star radio HT from Maryland, and I did go invest and buy a DMR radio for up here, but I can use, the hotspot handles both protocols. In fact, it handles some of the YSF mode, which is, I think this is the Fusion,
That's System Fusion.
right?
Oh.
Okay, so you can, so the hotspots are capable of handling multiple protocols. It seems right now, I have not seen a multi-protocol radio yet. I don't think I've seen a
Okay.
DMR. Maybe I did. I don't know if Kenwood someone put out a DMR and a,
That answers my question though.
Okay.
Like my question is more like, okay, cool. I didn't know that. So the conversion can actually happen within the hotspot. So I can
Oh.
potentially hit the D-Star node with a DMR radio, a regular DMR radio or whatever. That's the bulk of my
okay.
question.
I have not tried that. I'm not sure about that. I don't believe
okay.
that's going to work. Because
Okay.
they're different frame protocols. So
Yeah, Tony, the hotspot supports multiple protocols, but it does not do cross mode
Okay,
itself.
okay.
There are some gateways on the internet that will do conversions between different networks, different types of networks, so like DMR and D-Star and System Fusion. But it works in the context that we're talking about. It works like a reflector in the DMR world. They call it a talk group. In the D-Star world, we call it a reflector. So there are some nets that are multi-mode nets that you could join with any of the digital technologies. But in general, if you're going to do a lot of DMR operating, you want to have a DMR radio. If you want to do a lot of D-Star operating, you want to have a D-Star radio.
Got it. Thanks.
Oh, I have a couple of more questions. I
And I
have
think-
Jerry, GLS.
Okay, and I was just going to comment. I think Broadcom, I think that was the company that made some of these bridges. They're called bridges that does that. And so some of the larger sites I've come across have some of these bridges. So it is possible with some additional equipment. So yeah, go ahead. So next, Jerry, go ahead. Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
sorry. I
hi.
apologize. I can't see the people asking questions for some reason when I'm in screen show mode. Go ahead. Yes.
Yeah, hi, Jerry, K3GLS. Hey, two things. First of all, I think Kenwood, and I could be mistaken, the D7400 is multi-mode where it does D-Star and at least one of the other protocols. I don't have one. I'm not 100% sure, but something to look at.
It does D-Star and does APRS, but it doesn't do DMR or System Fusion.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
other one is in the Zoom hotspot there. You can go to the XRF reflectors, and they're cross mode. So I know I attend a net on Sunday night, and it's cross patched, if you will. I'm on D-Star. Some of the other ones are on, I'll say DMR, and we all talk across each other.
Oh, that's good to know. Okay. So these are
Uh,
some of these XRF reflectors down here.
Yeah, like I said, I know I attend one on Sunday night. It's an RV amateur radio net. And so I think the net control operator, Bob, he's on DMR. I'm on D-Star. I can never figure out how to set up my DMR radio yet. So, FYI there. Now, and actually a third question here. On the registration, you mentioned that you have to register all your devices, if you will. I know, like I said, I run a hotspot here. Yeah, right there, and you have the different devices. Is that mandatory or optional for your devices?
It's my understanding that they're required if you want to have routing to separate, if you want to have routing to the separate devices. If you want to treat them all as a single IP address, I mean, basically, some of this is not as critical until you do call routing, but I believe I think the preference is each unique device has a unique identifier.
Okay.
That's
I think I'm only in there once, but
Yeah.
I'll have to go in and update.
I
Thanks.
haven't tested your other endpoints there to try that. I haven't tried that.
Okay, thank you.
That was good information about the XRF stuff.
Yeah, I'm no expert, but that's what I do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're doing all that conversion up in the mothership there on this, on the reflectors. That's nice. Okay. That's
Yeah.
great to know.
So another question from Mark W3MGZ.
Hi, this is more not really a question, but if there's anyone who knows about this, but just correct me. My comment is just this regarding someone who was asking intermode of from DMR going to D-Star. If I'm not mistaken, this can only happen if there is someone providing a bridge between the repeaters. And that's why you would see on the configurations page of your hotspot, there are YSF to DMR, YSF to all these sorts, or DMR to YSF, because someone provides a bridge when you connect this and activate this on your hotspot for you to be able to use your DMR radio going to, let's say, a P25 or a YSF link. But so far, I haven't seen anything linking a DMR also. Yes, there, you could see there, like, right, there's a YSF to P25, DMR to YSF. These should be activated if you wanted to cross your radios, but there should be a repeater with a bridge, or there should be a host providing a bridge. That's the only way I think it works. But so far, I haven't seen any cross mode or any host yet providing a bridge for, let's say, DMR to D-Star. I may be wrong.
Well, it sounds like what the other gentleman was saying, some of those reflectors up there they're doing that processing up there on the reflector. Yes. But yeah, I'm gonna go try it. I haven't tried it. I've not tried that. I wanna go try
Yeah,
it.
I'm just, I think that's, I'm just trying to make a comment or a reaction to someone asking if there's if you can link a DMR, use a DMR radio to link to the D-Star. I think I haven't seen any, one of these choices already, like YSF to DMR or DMR to P25. There's no choices there yet. And should there be any, because I don't know if there's any updated version of the hotspots, I think there should still be, to be able to do that, we should still or yet find a reflector which has a host, which hosts a bridge between the two modes.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I'm agreeing. Yes.
Okay.
I
So
think it comes back down to the issue of you have to have that ambi chip to do the decoding and encoding. So.
all right. So we have another question from Tom W3TDH.
I just wanted to point out, and I put it in the chat, the TH74 from Kenwood is D-Star capable. It's supportable. So just so you know, you had speculated about that earlier, Bruce, whether anyone else was making them, and Kenwood is making a few of them.
Oh, very good. Okay, so yes, that's good. Because that was always a concern whether it was Icon proprietary and it was just the chip. Okay, which you can license. All right, let me go ahead and jump. Let's go ahead and with the 4 call signs a minute. Focus. Oops. All right, so there's 4 calls. There's my call, which we're pretty much used to as your call sign, as you're the guy that's holding the radio. There's your call, which is really the call sign of the person you're trying to talk to. And there's a repeater 1 call sign, or call R1 call is a call sign of the local repeater, and R2 call is a call sign of the local gateway computer. So we'll talk about that in a second. So for call sign, certainly for simplex, basically you call, my call is mine, and then your call, if you're just trying to call CQ, you would put CQ, 3 CQs in there, and you don't use these other 2 fields. Programming a D-Star radio is a little testier, and I'll talk about that in a minute. So a station's call sign is up to 7 characters long, and so by definition, the my call has to be 7 characters, and then you can put a slash on the end, but that's not to add an additional ID, but that's not put in the routing. I'm not sure I understand what that comment about. I haven't tried that one. The most important thing is the 8th character is used for the port. So the ports by convention are A is the 1.2 megahertz, 440, B is 440, C is, and that's 144. So that's why we have a KV3B repeater, because we operate on 440. G is for the gateway computer. it's only, so that should only be in the RPG, in the 2 field, repeater 2 field. So this is a using an RT Systems programmer. There's some other programmers out there now. There's a free one out there. I forgot what it's called. They were using it on the Olympics, on the Marine Corps Marathon. But so program, you'll find, I would recommend getting some software to program these D-Star radios. They are kind of pesty. I like the RT Systems because it does it sort of a spreadsheet. So here's the this is the channel name. This is there, and there's some conventions here. So here's where's my, so my call sign is built in. They don't have to have it in here. So here's your call. Who I'm calling is CQ, or in this case, I'm calling a D plus which means information. Give me the information. Or U means unlink. We'll talk about that. And then here's our repeater call sign, KV3B, and the B of space over, the B has got to be in the 8th spot. So that's why it's fussy when you're putting it in a radio. You got to make sure you space over and put the B there, and like here, and then you put G here for the gateway. So these are channels programmed into do the echo with the KV3B repeater. This one says link to 20 alpha. There's an L command there for link. This would unlink. This is connected to 30 Charlie. All right, so let me go down here to see. Okay, so this is linking to D-Star is made possible by the D-Star Gateway software. So as I mentioned before, that remember all those different reflectors, and there's a Monlink program that will automatically switch the KV3B repeater to those different frequencies. It will only do that switch if the channel is not active or it hasn't gotten a command. Each of the users, you as users of the repeater, can put in that your call field a designation. In other words, if I turn my HT to channel 4 here, and I keyed this thing up, this REF 20 alpha link command would get sent to the reflector with the repeater, and it would switch to reflector 20 alpha. If it's already linked to a station, you'll get an error message saying already linked. So then you need to switch to channel 3 and send an unlink command. And then the repeater will come back and say it's unlinked. And then you can switch back to channel 4 and key it again and send the link to 20 alpha. So that's how you as users can control what reflector the repeater is linked to. If you don't, and then if you don't use it, it will, then you just walk away, the Monlink program will switch it back to the default, essentially go back to the program schedule. What else? You can turn that now. Some repeaters, they don't want the end users switching their reflectors, switching the repeater around, so you can turn that off. That's a configuration option in the software. Right now, so far we run, it hasn't been a problem. We run to let users switch the reflectors as needed. Okay. All right, this is just pointing out these commands only work if we're running that software on our gateway, which we are. And then the commands, there's some other commands you can put in there: echo, record, playback, to essentially check. Echo is really handy for checking your audio levels. I can change my Zoom spot and do an echo test. This is WA3SWJ checking the echo feature on my Zoom spot. I don't know if you heard that. There's some audio coming over already. So the echo feature is handy to check microphone levels, if you're hitting the gateway or not. So that's handy. So there are some of these nice commands in there that let you control the gateway from your HT. Okay, so there's just some more. And then this is comment about using the echo command. So back here, echo. So that's, as I said, very handy to check the audio levels. You can certainly call up for a radio report, but it's good to actually hear your own voice back and what level you talked at. And then we talked about linking. Now the result. So this is how you essentially, so to link it, you basically turn to that channel and just push, key the radio for a couple seconds, and you get a couple of frames of the frames with those commands, with those headers in there to the repeater, and then it will come back and say it will unkey. The other thing that's interesting about DTAR2 and this, just keying it, when they have nets and ask people to check in, you don't need to talk. You'll sit there and there's some software on those nets. When you key the radio, your call sign sent to the reflector or wherever, and someone monitoring it. You can see here, local, you can see the different people who've checked in. So just well, these are GPS broadcasts. So these are people with GPS radios that are echoing. You see, I just did one. And this is on, okay, we're not just picking up locally. So it's a nice way to check in for nets. Just keying the radio will give the net control the list of call signs that have checked in. You don't have to actually talk and announce, and you can wait till you're actually called upon to then actually talk. So that's a kind of an interesting side effect of this digital check-in. And we talked about unlinking. As I said, our particular repeater, if you try to link to a, it's already, if it's linked to 62 Charlie and you try to link to 20 Alpha, it's going to come back and say it's already linked. You have to send through an unlink command first, and then the repeater will actually talk back to you and say unlinked, and then you change the your call to whatever station you want. As I said, you can go in there and keep changing the radio. It's easier to put those in all separate channels of the radio. It makes it easier to sort of manage. All right, the last topic is kind of complex, and I've got it in here more as a reference, but you just talk to it a little bit because I got a nice graphic when we talk to it. Okay, so the gateway system is that we call it with discrete within the gateway. So you get assigned, each of your radios get assigned an IP number through that user data. Okay. That's so there's two routing they call site routing and user routing. I have a nice graphic here. Okay, so and we haven't exploited this. I never got around to exploiting it when I was down in Maryland, but essentially you can sit here and do site routing, which says, I just want to call London. I just want my voice to come out the London repeater. And so that site route will, instead of sending to anybody else, and then it's who's on the reflector or who's connected through, you can say in fact, there's no reflectors involved here. The system, the mothership, will route your thing over to the London repeater and your voice will come out over there. The other option is user routing. So the user network will find, since you can see the system knows this is D-Star. You can see this is everyone's been on the network. This is the mothership kind of list. You can see all the stations, what time they've talked in, where they are, reporting node. They sound a dongle someplace in Breakfast 9. And so the system mothership knows where all these guys are. So if I wanted to call K3NE, the system would know where it was. So if I put K3NE or W2BBI into your call field and gave it the gateway, this thing would, the D-Star network would find that person over here. We find whichever, I wouldn't need to know what reflector he's on or what repeater he's connected to. It would just find him and make a call out to his radio. Now, what happens during this is the repeater looks like it's transmitting, so no one else is hearing anything. So it causes a little bit of confusion because when this guy's trying to, he doesn't know that he can't transmit. So we haven't fully, it'd be nice to play around with this. I have not seen it in action, but this is a architecture feature of the D-Star network. Is this what they call site routing and user routing? And then, so here's some examples. Here's site routing. So here's given this information, W2TAP, here's some information here. So what happens, and if you program radio, so my call is W2AP. I'm going to set the repeater one is on the B frequency, which is the 2 meters. And this is the W2KO, PO, that's in Seldom, New York. That's my repeater. And I set your call to /, which says I want to call, this is a convention, the VK8RAD repeater, which is in Darwin, Australia. So what will happen is that my call would get routed from my home repeater over the network and come out on the UHF module, the 2 meter module in Darwin, Australia. So that's pretty cool. All right. So let's go so the user routing now. So here's this information kind of here. I'm still W2TAP. So here I'm setting my call to W2AT. The repeater I'm going to use is W9CEQ. W9CEQ is located, okay. I'm not sure who that is. I don't know the repeater, but I want to set the N5MIJ. So what happens here? We return W9CEQ. Routed from, okay, this must be his home repeater. This must be, that's his home repeater again, sorry. W9CQ is his home repeater. And then the system would route it and over the gateway and come out on the last RF module that NM5, who I'm trying to call, use anywhere in the world. So that's also pretty cool. You gotta admit, that's pretty neat, but we haven't really exploited that feature. So I'll leave those examples in there and go back and look at this, kind of neat. So here's another, someone's in a car here. So here's, he calls, here's my call. I'm sorry. My call is, this is W7JRL. I'm trying to call N9JA. Here's NJN in his car. And I set my repeater as N7IH and I wanted to route to the gateway. So it goes over the network. And so sure enough, it comes out over here. The system finds him on that repeater because that's where he was working and he'll get a call. He'll hear me. All right, there are some games you can play if you could cross bands, take advantage of the fact that some repeaters have multiple nodes. So if I'm calling in on, if this particular repeater is fully, it's got all ports, it's got port A, B, and C repeaters. So theoretically, I can call in one node and have it come out another. And I can essentially change band with the call. And so that only works, obviously, you've got the hardware, the repeater set up to have these multiple ports. Okay, that's some. Let me leave some time. Okay, so this is a good, I think that's a good gist of the routing, and there's some more information here. You want to go through that some more details. But let me leave some the rest time. So here's some resources here to, again, I did check them all out, make sure they're working. I didn't check some of the Yahoo groups to make sure they're still there. I did check all the URLs, they're still working. There is this, I'm not a real fan of these for dummies things, but I looked through this one, it looked pretty good. If you want, it's version 4, so they've had some time to update it. And I talked to find you. And this is this little calculator. You remember I talked about, they've got this new protocol, they call it DPRS. It's a combination of the APRS message header and the D-Star message header. And so that's kind of, so it gives you a little web calculator to form that message that you can put as your info field in your D-Star info field. Okay, and then apparently we've already introduced Joe. As I said, I'm very excited to have Joe come aboard. He jumped right in. He's in record time. He's already solved. We got a call from our host up at Montgomery College saying, hey, our site, our server was failing their security scan. We're using old security protocol for the SSL handshake. And Joe jumped right on there, got it resolved, and he fixed our certificate. So thanks, hats off to Joe. He's been a great asset jumping. He's come up to speed. And so that Terry sent me this picture. There's Joe in action there with Al up at the north site. With that, I can take some questions. And I'll stop my screen sharing. Oh, well, okay, so I'll leave it because I have to go back.
Let's see, Bruce, this is Lewis, I have another question. Lewis with a question.
Bruce, you're muted.
Sorry, okay, now I'm unmuted. I wonder how I got muted. All right, sorry. Yes, so go ahead, Lewis.
Yeah, on that user routing feature, like what happens if there's already like if somebody in our area, let's say, uses that to establish a connection to somebody in your area, just for example, and the repeater that's or the node or whatever that's near you is already in use, like if there's already a Q cell, like what happens?
I don't know. The thing knows it can't transmit. I don't know if you get a busy tone back, or I've never tried this. It'd be interesting we never got around to trying this.
Oh.
You got to work. It'd be great to set it up with some people. I was going to try with Jim up in Frederick, and was it Jim or? It was when I was working, I didn't have as much time. Now that I'm retired, maybe I want to try it again. But yeah, it'd be a fun thing to experiment with. I know on the DMR radios here, we got a busy tone if we can't get through.
Okay, and then one other quick question. Is there something that's like equivalent to 146.52 for D-Star, like a national calling simplex frequency?
No, because I mean, there's these reflectors, and I was trying to show you the reflectors. I mean, there's this mega repeater, right? So you theoretically get on this mega 1 Charlie, and you can say, hello, is anybody out there? And you should get people from all over the world.
Well, but I mean, like, what if I'm just going, driving down the highway, taking a road trip or something. And, normally I'd want to be on 146.52 in case,
Right.
just to
The
maybe
2 meter,
talk to other
the 2
people
meter
on the highway.
Right, the 2 meter calling frequency.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think there is one. I don't know. I don't believe so. There is, I mean, there's that map out here that shows where the different repeaters are.
Okay, so,
That I had earlier. Where was that? D-Star Nets? No. All right, I had one. It was early in the presentation. I think it's one of the Find You pages that shows you can look. So ahead of time, you sort of plan your trip.
so it sounds like if I want to do that, I should just, for that particular usage, I should just stick with 146.52 FM then.
Right.
just-
Or if, as I said, as you know where you're going, you could, kind of jot down the frequency. But you're right. I don't think there is a calling frequency for D-Star, correct?
Oh, well, I see Howard just commented there. 145.67 is National D-Star Simplex.
Oh, there you go.
Okay, thanks, Howard.
Hey, Tom, W3TDH.
One of the things you can do if you've got a D-Star node or whatever, and Bob Berninga encourages this, is you can put a APRS signal out there that says it's here in this place, and here's the information you need to access it. And then anybody going down the road in the area will see that on their APRS map and can choose to use it or not as they see fit. And Bob thinks that's a great way, and I've experimented with it and had it work for me. So, might be worth trying.
Yeah, that's not a good idea. Yeah, I like it.
And we also used to, we stopped because the fellow who was doing it locally moved, but we also used to put out information on every single emergency room in Montgomery County and all the police precincts. We didn't put out the fire stations because it's counterproductive, because fire stations aren't always staffed. But we did put out the places that are always staffed that people might need to turn to in an emergency. But the fellow doing all that work has moved out of the area. W3TDH.
That's why I love this. Always learn something new here. And ham radio. Anything else? Let me stop sharing here.
Yeah, Bruce, could I ask a question?
Of course, yes.
Yeah, so the user routing, call sign routing, does that also work if the person, like, for example, if you don't have a D-Star repeater, but if you normally have your dongle or Zoom spot connected up, will that allow me to route a call to you on your Zoom spot?
I would think so. I mean, it listed these, it knows about Zoom's dongles, but again, I haven't tried it. That users, let me share my screen again.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering, because I knew it would show up like that you've been on it and you've been
Right.
on via Zoom spot. So I would think it would still figure out how to get to you.
Yeah, as I said, there's lots of stuff to keep experimenting with this thing. We did not fully exploit it.
Does it require special setup though on our repeater then? Is that?
I don't believe so. It should be ready to go.
So theoretically you could like try to call me on our repeater.
Yes, I should try that.
Okay. Or Joe or whoever, yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's a good, I'm gonna make a note. Let's do that. Let's set up a time and try that.
Okay.
You're monitoring the D-Star repeater.
Right.
Yeah, and I'm willing to, I'm willing to work with folks on that too.
Yeah, that's okay. That's right.
Just
Okay,
drop
Joe.
me just drop me an email.
That would be a great experiment.
Call me on our D-Star repeater.
Okay.
I'm on much of the day, but not 24/7.
So one thing we'll have to fix, and something stopped. I don't know, it's my end because of I was going to go check my ports, but I used to be able to tell my hotspot to link right to the KV3B gateway directly. And I can't seem to do that anymore. I don't know if that's an issue at my end or the repeater.
I haven't been able to get that to work either, Bruce.
Okay,
and
so that could be another thing we could put
I'd
on
like to figure out how to do that.
Okay. let's put that on our list of things to do.
Yeah.
Your list of things to do.
Is that because typically we're already linked into a reflector? Like
That might
62
be.
Charlie? Because
That-
doesn't the Mon thing automatically, periodically, if we're not linked to anything else, just make sure you get linked back on to 62 Charlie is the default?
That's correct.
Right, but if you look at that, what should happen, what used to happen, share my screen again. Is it sharing? I don't see the bar.
Yes, it is.
What is, okay. What used to happen on this KB3 dashboard, my hotspot would show up here under remote users. And so this last turn is on the RF, and then this, because so this, it used to show up here, and I can't seem to get that to work anymore, but that's where it should show up. If you go to a 62 Charlie dashboard, this is where I used to, if I link my hotspot to there, I'll show up here. Let me do that real fast here. I get my sorry. Oop, let me do, so if I go to D-Star and get my Zoom spot and go to 62 Charlie, tell it to go flick the link. The Lincoln. All right, it's not, what's it not doing? There it goes. Okay, so 62 Charlie, it's linked. And then I should show up over here now. As soon as that refreshes, Control F. No, not there yet. All right. But anyway, it should show up in this remote users list. But yeah, so that's something we could try and fix, is get that, be able to, and then what happens, then I can directly gateway without interfering with it, not going, without having to go out on 62 Charlie. Well, yeah, that'll be a fun thing to check.
Yeah, there's a net going on right now though, so it's probably linked to another reflector.
It is. It's linked to 62 Alpha.
Oh, okay.
Right, so you should be able to look at, if you go look at here, it's KV3B dashboard, and it should say 62 Alpha, see that?
Yeah.
And there, it looks like Terry could just checked in or did something on there. And then theoretically over here on users, we should see all that activity here. I'm not sure why they don't see it all the time. W3EDS. Yeah, there's Terry. So there's Terry. He connected into the KV3B. He's listening to that repeater. And so this is the mothership knowing about him. Okay, pretty nice. So it's lots of stuff to experiment with there. Oh, there's the chat now. I wasn't seeing the chat because I was doing full my screen show mode on the presentation. Any other questions, or you guys are ready to go play with this thing? Get it humming again?
Quite fascinating, Bruce, quite fascinating. In fact, it's overwhelming. I didn't realize how convoluted or in this case, how complicated it appears. But again, I guess if you read the user manual or the manual for the dummies like me, it'll give me some idea of, you know, how you do it in baby steps and then get up and get running.
Right. As I said, conceptually, it's just like, it's a regular repeater, but they've come up with a way to packetize your voice so they can ship it over the internet to other repeaters. And then they've got like a listserv. Essentially, those reflectors are like listservs, mail listservs, right? So if the packet goes up to this, listserv, it will just resend the packet to everyone else that's registered to listening to that listserv. and that packet contains the voice information, and it just puts it out on the other repeater. So, they're just regular, they are repeaters that have this ability to send because you can digitize the data now, I can ship it around and I can copy it quickly, right? I can make 50 copies of it and send it to 50 repeaters at the same time. So, and as I said, I think that the fusion systems and the DMR systems are similar kind of technology. All right, well, Joe, I'll look forward to you. I'll be glad, and Fred too. I would like to try to get that. Let's try. I wouldn't mind trying that calling, that point to point, the call sign calling, and then also trying to get the hotspot direct connection to the repeater working. That'll be nice little projects we can work on.
Yeah. That'll be fun. It's always something new to learn with this stuff.
Exactly. That's why I love this hobby.
Yeah.
All right, well, thanks a lot. If there's no further questions, terrific presentation. Thanks so much, Bruce, for taking time to be with us and to give us such a great presentation. I know everybody appreciates it. And there's a lot of very great information that we're going to upload and share with people on YouTube. So even if they can't make it tonight, your good effort is going to come to good use for those that can later tune in. So, all right.
Thank you. It was great seeing all your faces again.
It was great seeing you too. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. So